it's Joe here from Snake Draft FPL, and today I'm bringing you a video on what to do if you have a bad start in Draft FPL. Obviously, in an ideal world, everyone would have a great start every single time, but that isn't always how it goes. Sometimes you just don't get the results you want, and you have to make some tweaks and some changes and reevaluate. So today what I'm going to do is show you my team in the Snake Draft FPL League. It's currently sat 10th in the league. I've got 0 wins out of 2. I'm going to go through my team and go through my kind of thought process on how I might change things and fix things, and then show you what it looks like going forward so you can apply that to your own FPL draft teams. Now, just quickly before we start, it's on draftfantasyfootball.co.uk. It's not on the official FPL draft site, but the scoring's basically exactly the same. The only thing we have is Kante points, which are 1 extra point per every 2 tackles and interceptions, but it doesn't really make much of a difference to how the league is played. Also, the waivers run slightly earlier in the week, so the waivers have already run this week, so I've been able to make some changes. So without any further ado, let's get stuck into my team, and you can then apply this to your own teams if you've started badly as well. Okay, so here is what happened in game week 2. Obviously, this was an absolutely horrendous week. 24 total points is not ideal. Everything that went wrong pretty much did go wrong. I only had 2 returns in the whole team. I'm sure everyone has had similar game weeks to this in the past, but just because it happens at the start of the season makes it feel much, much worse, especially when I just lost in game week 1 with a decent score. So the first thing I try and do is you've got to kind of focus on 2 things. First of all, you do have to show some patience. Obviously, it feels way worse when it's right at the start of the season and you've got 0 points on the board, but bad weeks happen, right? Bad weeks happen all the way through the season, no matter how good your team is. Sometimes you just get that unlucky mix where everyone blanks. It happens. So I'm going to try and just focus on trends that I think aren't going to improve. Obviously, some players, I think you need to be ruthless, but you also need to be not reactionary. You can't go around chasing points. You need to make sure that the players you keep hold of have got good prospects going forward, and the players you get rid of don't. So I'm going to go through the team one by one. So obviously, Lloris in goal. I've got absolutely no doubts about him. I think Spurs are going to be a really good defence. He's good for save, bonus, whatever. So not worried about that in the slightest. Diego Carlos picked up an Achilles injury. He's going to be out for a long period of time, so he's gone straight away. No doubt in my mind, he will be gone. That's fine. Moving on, Gabriel, 1 point. Obviously, it's not great. 2 goals conceded to Leicester, but Arsenal are still a good team. They're going to be a good defence this year. He's great on set pieces. I'm not worried about Gabriel. He stays. Next up on the list, we have Andy Robertson. Now, do I still think Robertson is a good asset? Yes, absolutely. Do I think maybe Liverpool defence might not be as good as we hoped? Potentially, yes, as well. I will say Robertson is definitely, obviously, still a good pick. I just think maybe I might be able to do a bit better if I can trade him. So he is definitely in the potential trade bait category. Just because I think Liverpool, with Thiago injured, they got defensive injuries. Long term, still a good pick, of course. He's still very attacking. He's playing right up high at the pitch, and I'll be happy to keep him if that's what it comes to. But I just think maybe his value is slightly lower than we hoped, so he may be on the chopping block. But definitely happy to keep him. Sterling. In fact, I'll stick with the defenders for now. I've got Anderson as well, who's on the bench this week. Not concerned about him really at all. The fixtures are tough, but I'm happy to play him this week at home to Villa, so I'm not too concerned about that going forward. Then Sterling. Been a little bit disappointed so far. Just the 1 assist through 2 games, but they've got great fixtures coming up, and he looks like the one that's going to be most involved in their attacking output, obviously other than the wing backs. So I'm happy to keep him. I'm happy to play a bit of a longer game with Sterling. I'm not overreacting and looking to chop, so he will be staying, I would have thought. Coutinho, I think, is a big problem. He's not been playing well. His stats are terrible. He's got this little niggle. Buendia looks great when he's come in. Coutinho is a big problem in this team, in my opinion, so he is definitely on the chopping block. He is probably the biggest concern I have about this team. Almiron, I'm happy to keep. Obviously, you see he's got 4. Obviously, he only got 3 in FPL. That's because he picked up a Kante point this week with 2 tackles. So like I said, it doesn't make a big difference, but it does give the midfielders a little bit of a bump. Almiron, he's dodgy. I think if the fixture is, obviously they've got City this week, so when we look to the following team, you'll see that I might have had to get rid of him just because of the fixture. I don't mind him as a long-term play, but because this team needs changes, it needs a starting 11 that's going to do better next week, he may go. If I could hide him on the bench, I probably would. Maddison, I've got no doubts about. I think he's going to be Leicester's best player. Leicester as a whole, I think, are in a bit of trouble, and I see them doing quite poorly. But Maddison, I'm not concerned with, so that's fine. Guedes, 1 point. Obviously, he didn't get the start in the end at Fulham. I think long term he is probably going to start. He's another one like Almiron. If I need someone this week, I may drop him, but I think it's more likely that I'll be able to hide him on the bench. They've got Spurs this week anyway, so if he doesn't start, I'm not too bothered. I'll bench him, and then hopefully when the better fixtures arrive, he'll be starting. Other midfielders, Billin is a Kante point. Bench fodder really, but he may have to go because it looks like he might not start. He obviously didn't start versus City, so I have to watch that. Sinisterra is kind of a long-term play. I'm hoping that eventually he breaks into the team and will start, racking up the points. So he's in a similar situation to Guedes. Obviously, I think there's probably more chance that Sinisterra starts next week, but if I can hide him on the bench for the next week, I will. Richarlison is a tough one. I do think he will start coming into the team more and become more of a factor, but I will say that I don't really like him as a player. I don't like him as a fantasy asset. I find he ends up normally getting more yellow cards than he does goals. And with the limited minutes, he is someone I'm definitely looking to move on. And I have been ever since I drafted him, really. I shouldn't have drafted him. I didn't want him. I just thought it was too good value to turn down at the time. But if I was forced to keep him long term, I wouldn't be that bothered because I think his value is only going to go up as the season goes on. The other 2 forwards I've got are Brennan Johnson and Mitrovic. Both kind of similar story, really. I'm happy with both of them. Obviously, it could have been so different. Mitrovic missed a penalty. Johnson had a goal ruled out for offside by a hair. If both of them had scored this week, we probably wouldn't even be making this video. I wouldn't even be worried because I think I would have won this week and it would have all been fine. So I'm not worried about them at all. They're definite keeps. I'd be happy to trade them if it was involved in another trade. I'm not absolutely wedded to them, but I think they're both still decent value. So that's looking back at the team. That's kind of my thought process on what I'm kind of analysing this team and how we'll look to move forward in the future. So I will now change to my current lineup for the following week, and you can tell it is quite different. So there's been quite a lot happening this week, and this is kind of how I'm looking to turn things around. So the first big change, I made a trade this week. I lost Coutinho and Richarlison, which, as I said, I thought were the 2 biggest problems in my team because they're both reasonably high value players that weren't performing, and I thought in the short to mid term I don't really see them performing, so I was happy to get rid of them. And in came Ben Chilwell and Mbeumo. Absolutely chuffed with this. I think Ben Chilwell is probably got about the lowest value he'll get all season at the moment. Obviously, Cucurella's just come in and he didn't get the start and he's lacking match fitness, so there's a lot of worry about his minutes. But I think as the season goes on, those minutes are only going to go up. So I'm not too worried about Ben Chilwell. I'm actually really happy to have him. They've got easier fixtures as well over the next 3. So hopefully that means Tuchel will let him play, build up some match fitness. So I'm pleased to have him in the back line. And also I brought in Mbeumo. Brentford have amazing fixtures over the next 5. They're top of the fixture difficulty ticker, so I'm really pleased to get him in. It really bolsters out that front line as well to have 3 good starting forwards. With the fixtures Mbeumo's got, I think it's the right time to get the Brentford attackers in, and it kind of makes me, I don't now need to dabble in the Brentford midfield because I think that could be a bit of a minefield. We're not really 100% sure who's going to start. They've got quite a lot of options, so I'm really happy with this trade, and I think this makes quite a big difference on its own. You can see also that Diego Carlos is gone. Obviously, he's injured for a decent amount of time, and I probably would have got rid of him anyway, even if he hadn't picked up the injury, just because of Villa's form. In comes James Justin. Leicester have been not great so far, I will admit, but Saints have been pretty terrible as well. I think Justin with the home fixture, bit of attacking threat, good chance at a clean sheet. The bookies back Leicester to keep a clean sheet this week. I think that's a good pickup, and he comes straight into the starting lineup, obviously with that good fixture. I've also brought in Caicedo for Almiron. This is mainly a fixtures play. I didn't want to have to start Almiron at home to City, and I wanted to bench. I think Guedes and Sinistera might have more long-term value than Almiron, so he's gone. I may well pick him up when the fixtures improve, but for now, if no one snaps him up, he's sat on the waivers. Caicedo is a really good Kante point midfielder. He makes a lot of tackles and interceptions. That's the main reason I picked him up. It is boring, and obviously an FPL draft with no Kante points, I would have made a different decision, and I would have picked up someone with a little bit more attacking threat. You can see my Game Week 3 waivers video for the kind of players I would have been looking at in an FPL draft league. So he comes in just as a tick merchant, hopefully get 3, 4, 5 points out of him. That's fine. I like the fixtures for the rest of the team. And to be honest, looking at this team now, I feel like I'm going to have a really good week. Famous last words probably, but I think the fixtures are really good. I really like the fixtures of the front three. Midfield and Maddison and Sterling both have great fixtures. I think all my defence is fine. Anderson I've got first on the bench this week, just in case obviously Chilwell may not play. There's obviously a chance that someone else could miss out that we don't know about. So I was torn between honestly playing Anderson and benching Caicedo and playing a 5-2-3, but I just couldn't do it. I think it's too disgusting, so I couldn't play the 5 at the back. So Anderson's first on the bench, ready to come on, and I think this team has better prospects going forward, and I'm actually really happy with this team now. I feel like I've got rid of the 2 biggest problems. I've got a couple of players on the bench that I can hide and hope that their value increases. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process, and I'd advise you, if you're in a similar situation to me where you think your team's okay but you've not had any wins yet, go through each player individually, do an assessment on them, and think, what am I doing with these players? Like, is this a good fixtures? Is it just like a top tier player? Is it a long-term hold like Guedes and Sinistera are for me? Or is it someone that, like Almiron, where the fixtures are kind of mixed? He's got a bad fixture this week and his output's kind of mixed as well, and you just think actually it's not worth keeping him. He can go to the waivers and free up a spot for someone else. Okay, that is kind of it really. That's what I would encourage you to go and do with your own teams if you've had a bad start. If you enjoyed this video, please do like it. I'm not sure, this is kind of a different style of content that I normally do. I don't often look at my teams too much on the YouTube, but if you enjoyed it, let me know and I'll do more things like this. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we will see you next time.